So what is up, guys? Nick here, helping you to master your technology. Huawei Mate 20X, honest feelings. I can't keep the beast in hiding anymore. I've been using it for a little bit while now. Haven't talked about it much because I haven't thought that it would benefit many people, as it's a very niche phone right here. Not a lot of people are gonna be buying a 7.2-inch phone. It just doesn't make sense for a lot. But some people have asked me, Nick, can you do an update on that phone? And you guys seem to enjoy the speed test between the XS Max, where the XS Max had a smoother feel, the Mate 20X having a little bit of a faster feel. 7nm chip on this phone and similar specs, but just a massive screen version of the Huawei Mate 20 Pro. Okay, so the first thing I want to discuss is the design of the Mate 20X. This phone right here is huge, but it has a design that's very reminiscent of, I would say, like the OnePlus 6T on the front. It does have a very interesting aspect. The chin on this phone is very small, and I do like that because it reminds me a lot of how low or how far down the iPhones comes, and that's one of the best looking chins on the XS Max. There's basically no chin on that phone, and this gets pretty close here on the Mate 20X. I do like that. I also like the top, where the notch is basically just this little droplet notch. This is very easy to deal with, and in the settings, Huawei allows you to go ahead and hide that if you want. Now, the back of this phone is questionable. I don't think this camera is the best looking. It does have some amazing technology in it, but it just looks like a big square on the back of the phone. To me, it's not the cleanest aesthetic. I do like how the Huawei Mate 20X has this grippier, it has this like a plasticky feel, but it just feels nice in the hand. And the sides of the phone are like a aluminum kind of feel. So definitely a premium build here for this device. However, it's not the most premium phone I've felt, but definitely up there. So it's a very strong overall build and design for me on this device. I also like how you can swipe down on the fingerprint to bring down your notifications tray. And yes, this does have a one-handed mode if you were worried about this being way too large. This phone definitely does this. So you'll be fine there, and because you could swipe down, you'll be able to reach your notifications a little bit easier. I also want to point out that this has a little red button, a pretty unique aspect. It doesn't really matter because I don't look at the buttons that much when I'm going to find it, so it's not going to make you find it easier, but it does distinguish between the volume rockers, which is a nice little design element. You do have the SIM card tray off to the left, and up at the top, there's an IR blaster on here. That's a rare feature you don't see on a lot of phones anymore. Headphone jack at the top. I don't like this because I just think that the wire sticks down when you're trying to, listen to music or something. So definitely don't like headphone jacks at the top. I like them at the bottom. It's just a little bit of a better spot for me. Also, I tried to put a microphone on here, like a shotgun, microphone from Rode, and it was blocking the camera on both the front and the rear. So it's basically useless to put a shotgun mic on here if you want to use this for vlogging, which was disappointing. At the bottom here, you do have yourself the USB-C. Love having USB-C. This did come with a supercharger, so that's great. It also came with these headphones. They look like fake earpods or something like that, but they work. Over here, you do have yourself the speaker grill as well, and one down here. Now, these speaker positions can be covered when you're gaming on this phone, which I didn't like about this device either. So yes, it does have very loud speakers, but they can be covered because they're not integrated in up here or somewhere down here. So definitely can be covered when you are gaming for this phone. Overall, it's a pretty nice build. I want to talk about the display now. The number one reason why one might buy this phone, it's a 7.2-inch display. This is OLED technology right here, and it's got 1080p. So if you look really closely, it's not as sharp as a 1440p panel. However, it's very saturated and has very good contrast, and the color calibration is on point for this phone. You can also change it between normal and vivid modes, and you go between warm, default, and cool. Now, one thing that's very annoying about this phone is every time you restart it, the auto adjust brightness automatically ticks on. I really cannot stand this with the Huawei phone. The same thing happened on the P20 Pro. I really do not like this because I don't like auto brightness. I like tweaking the brightness myself, but that's a personal complaint. I mean, it's nitpicking, but hey, I mean, that's something that you should be able to change yourself. It shouldn't be turning on every time you restart the phone. So you gotta love watching a video on this phone because it's just huge. Let me show you how I cover. See how I cover those speakers? That's what I was talking about earlier. But they're pretty loud. They're pretty loud. Now, if you pinch in, look at that screen. That is a massive screen. It's like a little mini tablet. A lot of people call this tablet. It looks like a tablet on video. This is definitely a phone. It's small enough to be a phone.
Not really, because it's still an immersive panel.
but watching video on here is just a joy for this device. And if you're a media head, this is probably one of your main uses of this display. Now, one thing that's annoying is that this phone doesn't rotate. For such a large phone, this thing should rotate on the home screen, just like, you know, the iPhone 8 Plus does, or the Note 8. That's a little bit annoying. Also, you do have multitasking, which is good. It comes with Android 9 Pie, which is on this phone. So if I go ahead and click this guy right here, you can multitask between applications. Very useful on a phone of this size. Overall, text is not quite as sharp as, like I said, on a 1440p, but you won't even notice because the screen's so big that when you're reading text on this phone, it's just gonna be so large, you won't even be thinking about, you know, whether you have 1080 or 1440p. It's that large. So this is a great large panel for most multimedia consumption. The contrast is good on here, and video watching is great on this device. So if you're into that, this is probably the main reason. Also, gaming, it's got a cooling system in it too, and gaming performs very fast, fastest I've seen on an Android phone with the Kirin 980 on this device. This does have 6 GB of RAM as well. Okay, so I want to touch on software. I haven't really used this thing much when it comes to the Huawei services. I actually don't use any of those. I just use the Google services, but I will say that the software updates are kind of lacking. They don't bring them that often, but they did bring a couple since the phone has been out. Still, they're a little bit slow to come, so just know that if you get this phone, you are going to be waiting a little bit on software updates. However, the software is snappy, but to me, it just looks dated. I don't know what it is. It doesn't have this polished looking feel to it. I think Huawei could work on this software overall because it just kind of looks like 3 years old to me. That's just my personal take. You might disagree, but I just find that the Samsung experience as well as the iPhone experience are just a little more polished. Now, LG is not too far ahead of this, but this would be more in line with LG if you ask me. That's just my personal take on the software, but it is very fast and it works efficiently. So if you do like an Apple-like experience, but you want an Android phone, I find this to be more Apple-like than even the Samsung experience as well. So do keep that in mind if you like the Apple-like experience, but you want an Android. Overall, software, fast, efficient, doesn't get updated that much, but it's very snappy. You have multiple features in here that you're gonna be finding for a very long time. You got the knuckle screenshot on here. You also have the ability to have digital balance feature where you can check how much time you've been using your phone, kind of like the screen time mode. You have many battery enhancements on here. You can change how you operate this device and system navigation between gestures, buttons, however you want it. But I did find the buttons or the gestures to be a little bit laggy looking, or I wouldn't say laggy, but kind of just a little choppy. So they don't look as smooth as I would like. So I typically had those turned off, even though it gives you more screen space. I just found this to be a little faster and more efficient with the buttons at the bottom. So let's move on to battery life. With this phone, I've seen the best battery life I've ever seen on a flagship Android phone. Now, I've seen better battery life on it was the Xiaomi Mi Max 3 or whatever. It's the 7-inch phone that Xiaomi has this year, the budget one. That was a little bit better here than this one, but this one right here for a flagship phone, the best I've ever seen. Better than the XS Max, better than the Note 9. It's the best I've seen. 5,000 milliamp hour battery on here with less than a 1440p panel. This thing will stretch you into 2 days quite easily, and if you don't get through that time, you do have power saving mode. So overall, the battery life on the Mate 20X is very strong. So let me quickly discuss the cameras. This is absolutely the main reason why I even picked this phone up, is because I wanted to try out these cameras, and also I wanted a big screen for the viewfinder to see my photos, because this is one of the benefits of having such a large screen. When you are taking a photo, there's just so much space to see what you're doing on that screen. Now, this does have all the same features as the Mate 20 Pro. You got your night mode, aperture mode, which allows you to blur that background to your liking, portrait for people, your regular photo mode, video, pro modes, and then more. You have ton more modes. Monochrome for black and white, slow-mo for slow motion, a panoramic for landscapes. You got some fun AR features, light painting. You have HDR for dynamic range. Overall, I found this camera as a photography machine to be stellar. I think that the iPhone gets really close just with its smart HDR, but the detail you can produce out of this is incredible. It also goes 3x and 5x optically. So that means you can zoom very far without a loss of detail, which is pretty incredible. Now, I will say one thing about this phone that was disappointing. The front-facing camera, it's very sharp, but it looks very fake, and the photos look very like, I don't know how to describe it. They just look very like artificial. So you'll see in a couple samples in a minute, but the front camera is very sharp. It just looks really, really soft. One thing that's really strong about this phone is the video stabilization's gotten better over the other ones. Really, it's the zoom and the photography. So if you're into zooming and photography, you're gonna love the Mate 20X. I think the Pixel 3 sometimes just gets better photos, but still the versatility of this camera is unmatched here. This is one of the best reasons to buy any of the Mate series this year, is just the camera alone. And if you bought this, never use the phone, just use the camera, this could be used just for that. So discussing the phone call quality, it's very good actually. LTE strength was strong as well. Like I had LTE for signal since we're talking about this kind of stuff, and I had no drop calls with it. Speakerphones were loud because there was dual speakers on here. So overall, that's pretty good. I basically talked about all my honest feelings about this phone throughout this video. The build and design is strong. It's a very nice big device. I do miss having 1440p on the resolution, but that's a nitpick. Some people don't really care about that. The cameras are stellar. That's one of my favorite. That's probably the favorite thing about this entire device, is just the cameras being the same as the one on the Mate 20 Pro. These cameras are stellar and they're very, very impressive for a smartphone. Some of the best I've ever seen, and this is just only makes me more excited about what's to come for smartphone cameras in the future. Is it too big? This is a question a lot of people have about this phone, and quite honestly, if you don't have big hands, I think it is too big. This phone is very awkward to use all day long, and there is going to be times when you basically feel like you're going to drop it, or you feel like you can't even operate this thing without having both of your hands completely covered over it. So yes, for the majority of people, this is going to be too large. I just think it's sad that this phone is not available at carriers. It would have been a nice option. But at the same time, if you're out of the US and you have this phone available and you want a very large phone, you might want to consider this. Also, if you do want to get this in the US, you have to buy it through Amazon. I'll leave a link where I got it down below if you are interested. It's basically on par with the other flagships. It's just really large. I would say it's more competitive with the Note 9 just because it offers a pen support, and the Mate 20 Pro is more competitive with like the iPhone XS Max. At the end of the day, would I buy it again? Probably not, because I found it to be really a little bit too large. It's not as large as like those old Blue Studio phones that were like 7 inches and up and they had 16:9 panels. The aspect ratio makes this a lot more manageable. I probably would have went with the Mate 20 Pro if I could do it all over again. Let me know your thoughts down below. Mate 20X, are you picking one up? Did you pick one up? Do you not care? If you're not getting this phone, you can still leave your take on it down below. It's interesting to know what you guys think about current devices. And if you found this video helpful, entertaining, informing, enjoying, click that like button for me. Nick here helping you to master your technology. I will catch you all in the next episode. Be sure to be well and peace.